Welcome back to AM Agenda. With me, the Shadow Minister for Housing, Scott Morrison, and Labor's Parliamentary Secretary for Employment, Jason Clare. Gentlemen, I want to look at the cost of the Governor-General's trip to Africa a few months ago. Scott, $700,000? What's your reaction to that?
Well, it's a lot of money, and the question really is what role has the Prime Minister had in approving that expenditure or in directing where the Governor-General might go? I think they're questions for the Prime Minister. They're not questions for the Governor-General. I mean, we want to know whether the Prime Minister is using these things as a way of sponsoring his own application to be Secretary-General of the UN and the Security Council bid that he's got in play. And all these things are wrapped up together. The Prime Minister needs to focus more on what our challenges are here. He has a border protection crisis which is underway at present. He needs to focus on getting solutions there and stop trying to pretend that he's some leading Security Council United Nations figure.
It's a lot of money. $700,000.
Kieran, I'm pretty sure that the Governor-General isn't the first Governor-General to travel overseas. All Governor-Generals will travel, and their obligation, their responsibility is to travel and act representing the nation's interest. Now, I'm sure that one of the issues that the Governor-General raised was the issue of the UN Security Council, but among many others, their responsibility and their role is to make sure that they're representing Australia, our national interest. That means trade and that means jobs. And in that respect, this is no different to previous Governor-Generals who travel the world representing Australia's interest.
Scott, the Governor-General's office is quoted in the Daily Telegraph as saying, a visit of this complexity is without precedent. 10 countries, 18 days, and over 80 official engagements. The program was demanding there were no days off.
Well, it was a very hectic schedule. I mean, we all know the Prime Minister, sets very hectic schedules for people. And I think what he's done here is that's what he's done here with the Governor-General. And the question is, at what expense? Did he approve that expense? And, I think the original estimate for the trip, as it was first envisaged, was significantly less. I think 90% less. And the fact that it's blown out to a trip of this proportion, I think, is more about fanning the Prime Minister's ego and his own aspirations rather than Australia's national interest and our long-term interests.
I think that diminishes the Governor-General and her commitment and passion to the role. She works very, very hard, both in representing the country overseas and here in Australia. We know that she is always visiting rural and remote communities.
I agree.
She is a great Governor-General, very passionate about the work that she does.
I don't disagree.
And we want to make sure that we're not politicising this. She works hard to represent our country and we should be very proud of her.
Okay. The issue of urban planning. The Prime Minister made a few comments last night to the Business Council of Australia, suggesting that federal government could be bound to benchmarks in terms of standards of city planning around the country. Let's recap a little bit of what Mr. Rudd had to say.
We are serious about the business of how we go about the long-term reform of the planning of our major cities. This planning has not been done comprehensively well across Australia's largest cities.
Jason, the Prime Minister suggesting that federal funding could be tied to just what the states and local governments do on this. Is it about time that happened?
Yeah, this is very important stuff. Cities are the engine room of our economy. Most of us live in cities. Cities are where most of GDP is generated from. And if our cities don't work properly, then the economy suffers as a consequence. And that's why the federal government needs to be involved in the operation of our cities, making sure that they work well. If they're more productive, then the economy is going to be stronger as a consequence. I was critical of the last government. When I was working in the transport sector, I was critical of the last government because the only things that they would fund in cities would be freight-related projects. So projects like the M7, if they were a freight road, or freight lines through our city areas. If we're going to make sure cities work better, then we need to be funding things like passenger rail and passenger roads. Because if you can get to work quicker, if you can deliver things quicker, the economy will be more productive, and as a consequence, the economy will be stronger. So this is good stuff. This is where we need to be heading.
It should have happened sooner, though, shouldn't it?
Well, I'm glad the Prime Minister's taken up our suggestions. I mean, I've been saying this for more than a year, as has Malcolm Turnbull, as has the Coalition. I mean, our policy has been that the billions of dollars that the federal government has been spending and handing out to the states should have demanded something in return. And that should have... I mean, we've got a national affordable housing agreement. It was signed last year. It's worth more than $6 billion, and it doesn't require the state governments to release one block of land. So it's fine for the Prime Minister to give the speeches and to go out there and make all these statements, but it is a very important issue. And I share Jason's view about the cities and these things. We both have a strong interest in this, but the Prime Minister has just spent tens of billions of dollars on housing and various other initiatives with the states and local government, I should stress, and asked for nothing in return. So he's had the opportunity to put what he said in place this for the last 2 years and has done nothing on it. So I think at the moment, we'll have to judge him on his form going forward, but there's tens of billions of dollars of wasted opportunities already in his past.
35 million people in Australia by 2050, that's the forecast. Have we left our run too late, Jason?
Well, the job of government is never done. You've got to meet the challenges that confront you. The intergenerational report that will come out soon will show that the population is going to rise at a great level. I think it's a 60% increase between now and the middle of this century. It's going to create enormous challenges for the city that Scott and I both live in, with the population of Sydney expected to expand from 4 million to 7 million. Our roads are already congested. Congestion on our road system across Australia costs the economy now about $16 billion in wasted money that's not produced because people are sitting with their foot on the brake instead of the accelerator. That's 2% of GDP. So I think that it's a good thing for government to be acting on this. You can't just leave it to the states. You can't just leave it to local government. Federal government needs to be involved. That's what we're doing.
But you can't confuse, and the Business Council released their report this week. Only 14% of all the money we're spending on stimulus projects is going into economic infrastructure. The sort of projects that Jason was just talking about, only 14%. So, the freight challenge, for example, it's an important challenge. If we do nothing on our freight challenge, it's going to cost the economy $1.5 billion every year. So infrastructure is important, but critically economic infrastructure is important, and I don't know how school halls fit into that plan.
Okay, well, that's a debate for another day on the school halls. I want to look at the issue of rebates for cataract surgery. This is a blow-up that's happened in the Senate about the moves by the government to halve the Medicare rebate for cataract surgery. What's going on here? It looks like now, according to reports, the patients will have to pay the full fee of around $600 an operation. That's unacceptable, isn't it?
Well, it is unacceptable, and we've sought to engage the government on this issue. There were a range of measures that first came in with this bill. IVF, which is another one we've talked about on this program, and the government conceded some changes here, but they've been very bloody-minded about this one, and we've sought to engage them. They've said take it or leave it, and as a result, we'll be voting against it to disallow the regulations.
But now there's no rebate. Yeah. Now, because of the move, apparently, the patients will get no rebate. $600 out of their pockets.
I don't understand how you can throw around $24 billion in cash and then take away people's opportunity to get cataract surgery. And the government has to explain that.
But they say that ophthalmologists are gouging the system. That's what they're doing.
It's all the doctors, and the doctors are the bad guys, and they'll demonise them, and they're the problem, and all the rest of it. At the end of the day, what people looking for cataract surgery knows is the government's looking to half their rebate.
Okay, Jason?
Well, I think the important point is technology has meant that this is a simpler procedure than it has been in the past. It can be done quicker. The government believes that the savings from that should be passed on to taxpayers rather than to ophthalmologists. We're talking about a lot of money here, about $100 million. That's the sort of money that can be used to fund things like a new breast cancer drug that the government wants to fund, or to fund more rural doctors as part of our rural doctor package. It's important to be fiscally responsible about this sort of stuff. All of the savings measures we put up to the Senate, although the opposition talk about being fiscally responsible, they've knocked back the luxury car tax, the Alco-Pop tax, and now this savings measure.
And he said you shouldn't spend $24 billion just throwing it around too. So, that's why you're chasing your tail.
And by doing that, we stopped the economy going into recession, and we've saved tens of thousands of jobs all around Australia. If we took your approach, Scott,
it was all St. Kevin.
We would be in recession right now. So I'm very glad to have a debate about the money we spent, because the decisions that this government made stopped Australia going into recession.
The inflation figures due out today as well, which will be interesting to see what that comes up with, particularly in the context of analysts suggesting a rate rise on Melbourne Cup days. We all go down to the tab to put on a bet.
Well, we've already had one rate rise. We're going to see more rate rises. And what Glenn Stevens has said pretty carefully, I think, is that he's looking now at the timetable for the delivery of all of these projects. And while payments may have been made to the states, most of these projects are not yet underway. So the money is not yet really flowing in the economy. And as these projects blow out, only 1 in 10 of the houses that were supposed to be built by now have been built. And we've got the same thing in the schools building program. And as these programs delay, they're going to put more pressure in the wrong end of the cycle. And the Reserve Bank will look at that, and they will take the action. If the government doesn't take action on it, Glenn Stevens will, and that'll mean higher rates.
Well, that's not correct. The stimulus has peaked. The stimulus peaked in the middle of this year.
The spending has peaked, has it?
The stimulus has peaked and begins to taper away over the course of the next 12 months.